welcome to ParanormalNL Podcast. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Noseworthy. This is a pre-recorded show broadcasting on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans, and USA, 105.3 Gulf Coast, USA. Listen in to ParanormalNL Podcast on UPRN on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. EST, and follow UPRN on uprntalkradio.com and all their socials. ParanormalNL Podcast believes in promoting paranormal networking and paranormal tourism all over the world. ParanormalNL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team, a boots-on-ground paranormal investigation team in Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada. Contact me, your host, Jen, at paranormal.nl. podcast@gmail.com and follow PNL Podcast on Linktree at ParanormalNL Podcast. In this UPRN 107.7 FM pre-recorded PNL segment, we will be talking with the sponsors of the BOG team. That's right, they're a boots-on-the-ground team doing local historical paranormal investigations in East Coast Avalon, Newfoundland, and Labrador. And I'll bring on the stage shortly and introduce Mr. Taylor Hann. Dan Earl might join us later. Robert Dumont, Jessica Williams-Newhook, Jonathan Noseworthy, and myself, JV Noseworthy. The BOG team will also be doing an evidence reveal with the Torbay History House and Museum curator and manager, Noah Morritt. Now let's bring them all on the stage. We got Taylor.
Hey, everybody.
We got Robert Dumont. We got Jessica. We got Jonathan. And we got Noah. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having everybody. So what I'd like to do first is introduce our sponsors, the PNL Podcast BOG team. If you want to give a little bit of shout out there, let's start with our first person, Taylor, because you were on season 1. You were one of our first alumni network members from the podcast. Taylor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Taylor Hann. I am a medium in the group. I've been doing paranormal since I was a little kid. And I also have a YouTube channel that I post paranormal videos there.
Thanks so much, Taylor. And you can follow Taylor. He was on season 1 in ParanormalNL Podcast. That's for you UPRN folks who don't know much about PNL Podcast. We've already got 2 seasons on the go. Let's start with the next member, Robert Dumont. He was on season 1 also.
Yep. Pleasure to be here, guys. My name is Robert Dumont. I'm a actor, film producer. I'm in the entertainment industry in many facets. You can look me up online, just Google my name. I'm also a paranormal investigator. I actually got my start in the entertainment industry doing paranormal investigations for a TV series. And I'm happy to be back at it, even though I had an experience that made me not want to do it anymore. I'm happily back at it.
Yes, you definitely got to check out Rob's episode and his Devil's Toy Box and find out why he mentioned that. Jessica, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jessica Williams-Newhook. I've been surrounded by spirit pretty much all my life, similar to Taylor there. And recently finished my religious studies thesis on the religion of tarot. I'm a tarot reader, tea leaf reader, and medium. So I do sense spirit, I feel spirit, and notably, generally, ailments that spirit may have, and as well as I'll get snippets of names. Having a full conversation is a little more challenging for me, but they'll often give me different little scents or feelings or tugs or pushing or so that's kind of my role.
We're really honored to have 2 mediums on the team and also somebody from the film industry. Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Noseworthy, and I'm team support for the BOG team in Ghost Spate.
Everybody loves a good ghost bait. Noah, do you want to introduce the Torbay History House and Museum and tell us your part of the Torbay History House and Museum and about you and your work?
Sure. My name's Noah Morritt. I'm the curator at Torbay History House and Museum. I'm a folklorist and cultural historian by profession, and my doctoral dissertation was on the history of UFO sightings in Atlantic Canada in the 1960s. So I have paranormal connections prior to coming to work here at the museum, but I'm responsible for a historical collection of about 3,000 artifacts, and we are located in the former Roman Catholic Presbytery here in Torbay. And the historic house in which our museum is located was constructed circa 1918. So it's a century-old building, newly restored in 2017. And the good folks here from the BOG team, we've had some experiences in the house going back right from the beginning of setting up the museum there in late 2021 right through to today, and staff have consistently had experiences in the building. And later we came to learn too that former employees of the Roman Catholic Presbytery there serving when the church owned it also too had experiences. So there's a long history of activity in the building. And as the residence for priests, a lot of people came and went, including live-in housekeepers, staff who helped out maintaining the property and the grounds of the building, as well as the priests themselves who came and went from the community as they served the parish. So there's this really long history of people coming and going. And because it was, of course, the residence of the priests, it wasn't a place that a lot of residents ever went inside. So there's always kind of been this air of mystery that has surrounded the property and the building itself. And since it's become a museum in 2021, the public now have access, and people are legitimately curious about the building and the restoration that the town did as part of the process of turning it into a museum. And of course, there's now an even greater sense of mystery that has come with the experiences that staff, volunteers, and other visitors to the museum have had in the building. And we called the BOG team in because we're trying to make sense of what's going on.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people in the community with a lot of different experiences. I know you had some people go there and share some of their experiences about the History House. Did you want to mention some of them?
Well, I can speak to my own experience, which was when I first started working in the building as part of getting it ready and opening the new exhibits. You could hear footsteps up and down the staircases. And there's two staircases in the building. There's a staircase that belonged to the priests that went from the lower level up to where their bedroom suites were located. And there was also a set of stairs that was used exclusively by the housekeepers that went from the kitchen area of the house up to the housekeeper's bedroom and the laundry closets. Where she would put in the priest's robes and their bed dressings and whatever else other linens that they required. So the house, those two staircases, for whatever reason, seemed to be areas of activity. And when I first started working in the building, there's a set of stairs that go down into the basement of the house. And the basement originally was the domain of the housekeepers. That's where her larder was located. So there would be jarred goods down in the basement. She'd have other materials down there. There was a chicken coop that was accessible from the basement of the house as well. And the stairs going down into that basement, there also seemed to be a lot of activity. And very early on, the door, if left open into the basement, would just slam shut.
Slam shut.
was slammed shut. And there was even an incident where another member of staff was in my office. During the day, we were having a conversation, and all of a sudden there was just this slam, and it was the door to the basement slamming shut. There was no wind, there's no draft. And even in the past 2 years, we haven't experienced it since. But very early on, when we all first came into the building, we were having those experiences.
Yeah, there's been a lot of different experiences, especially I would say up around the staircase area. There have been some experiences. A member of our team had, Jessica, I don't know if you want to mention some of your experiences. I can open this one. I know we did like a preliminary investigation, and you had said you saw something around this area also.
Yeah, so when when we had done our preliminary, this was before we invited public in. If you just move your arrow there down by the bottom of the stairs, yeah, right along there. There was just on the other side. It is a nicely decorated kind of banister finishing there. There was a flash of light that went right across that when I was doing my initial investigation. And it's interesting because I use dowsing rods. I'm not very high tech. I tend to keep things low tech. And my dowsing rods, which are copper, were going very, very rapidly back and forth. And what's really interesting was it Dan or was it Robert that had an experience with something at that window when we did do the public one?
Yes, actually, I can go ahead and pull up a few things. Let me get out of this and go into another area. Rob, if you want to talk a little bit, I'm going to pull up one of the things that we found that I thought was kind of interesting when Dan saw something outside. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about what happened? I guess Dan is not here yet, but we can talk a little bit about what happened to Dan.
Well, I'll just talk about the energy that I picked up there with the dowsing rods. So dowsing rods are generally really good at just picking up kinetic energy. And when I was standing at the one spot in the stairs, so there's 3 landings in total. So you go up one set of stairs to the first landing, then you go along the window up to a second landing, and that's where I am right there. You go up to the third level. That's the kind of the second level.
Okay.
It was at that landing point where the rods were just going absolutely crazy after Dan had come in and indicated that he had seen an apparition in the window.
So Dan was standing out here somewhere, correct? Do you want me to go ahead and play the reel and then you can explain a little bit more?
Sure, go ahead and play the reel. So you can see there the rods. They're just.
Do you want to stay down here for the next round?
Much. They're just moving on their own.
Yep, I can see.
There you go. Your rods are moving a lot there.
Yeah, picking up that energy, and that they had done that the first night when we had done our investigation as well. Right at
now, Taylor, you said you could see him.
But this is where I saw the link that we had the investigation.
Now, you do hear a lot of people talking there in that investigation. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about the public ghost hunt? That was during the break between part 1 and 2. We had 2 different teams. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Rob?
Sure, yeah. We brought in a bunch of people from the public and allowed them to have their own experience ghost hunting. And in doing so, we actually ended up catching a bunch of evidence that they were all witness to.
Yeah, we gave a little bit of a debrief to them. I know this starts off kind of sideways. I don't think I can flip it for now, but I'll go ahead and play it because I think it flips during. But this is some of the evidence revealed where, Jessica, you're talking a little bit about. And this is just a little video of some of the public who were there. I think this is after the first group were there.
Bridget didn't come to us for the second round. She was only with the first round, but Edwin came with us. We asked.
I think I'll probably stop that for now.
Some questions about music and where he was again. Yeah.
Because we are sideways. So, yeah, we did have a lot of different EVPs that came up, and actually a lot of orbs. And I mean, a lot of orbs. Do you want to talk about the EVPs first or the orbs? I can pull up a couple different EVPs here. So, but first, Rob, I'm going to show the window glitch back to where Dan thought he saw somebody. This is the external of the building looking in. Did you want to say anything about this before we play it, Rob?
Sure. So, yeah, Dan, told us what he had witnessed and stuff like that. And so I said, okay, well, let's go outside and we'll shoot in at the window and just see if we can capture anything with nobody up there, nobody in that area. And then once we did start recording, you'll see, for whatever reason, we're getting glitches in the camera. Now, I took all kinds of hours of footage that night, and this is the only glitches that we really had. So, unexplainable. And we're shooting in 8K here.
Can you show yourself again?
Ooh, you see that just flicker?
Yeah.
My whole camera just tripped out.
The priest. Can you show yourself again?
So that was definitely a bit of a strange flicker. Now, we did get several different whether that came through on Spirit Box or EVP. Taylor did a solo in the basement. And now after he walks, he turns and he points his flashlight towards us. And as soon as he does that, you're going to hear something. So just stop and maybe mute yourselves or try to be quiet while we're listening and see what you think you hear. Right there, right before that. I'll replay it again.
Jennifer, I didn't hear any sound.
Right there.
We're not getting sound on our end, though.
Well, he's just walking around and you won't hear any sound. There is no sound. You only hear one very quiet, he's there. So when Taylor starts to walk towards you, I'll boost it all the way up, but there is no sound. Taylor's not saying anything. He's just on a solo, walking around in the basement. He's quiet. He doesn't say anything. And I'll tell you when. Right. It was right before then. So it says he's there. So I'll try another one. I know that the trail cams are great for orbs and also EVPs. We found a lot of different things. This one here is another one. Now we have a toss-up of what this one is saying. Taylor's, again, on his solo, he asks, who are you, I think, or where are you from? And it's a toss-up between a couple different things. We'll play it and see what you think. I'll play it back again. If you don't have headphones on, you're probably not going to hear it. So, Rob, what is it you think he's saying after because he does respond, he says, what the F? So he heard it audibly.
Yeah. I'm just going back to my notes. Just one sec.
So
Taylor's trying to get back in. He's in the green room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was over in. There we go.
Sorry
I was
about
over in
that.
Dropbox.
My phone died, so I had to join on my computer.
It's okay. So Rob has a theory of what this one is saying, and so do I. What's your theory, Rob? So while we're waiting for Rob, I think it's saying St. John. There is a picture, Noah, downstairs over by the stained glass windows. And there is a sister. She's called Sister St. John. And first we thought it said St. John's, like the city of St. John's, which didn't make any sense because you're in Torbay. There is a sister called Sister St. John, which I thought was very interesting because all the other sisters also showed up. And we found their graves across over in right across the street from you, Noah. Maybe you can mention a little bit about the Presentation Sisters because they do kind of tie into the History House.
For context, the house the museum's located is built in 1918, but across the road directly from us, there was a convent that was constructed in 1888, St. Michael's Convent, in which the Presentation Sisters, which is an Irish order, and primarily their responsibility to the community was for education. And attached to the convent, there was a school, and there were several sisters who over the course of the history of that building lived there. And it was active from 1888 until it was torn down in the late 1980s. And so today, there are a few graves of the sisters that are located on that property, as well as a prayer circle that was constructed in commemoration of their service in the community. And as I said, it's directly across the road from us, directly across our parking lot. And in the parking lot itself, there was a wood church, a large wood church that was constructed in 1919. So the convent was one of several buildings that made up Holy Trinity Parish, of which today the priest's house, the building that is now the museum, is the only standing structure of the historic parish. All of the other buildings have been demolished.
So the name that the theory I thought was this one, and I've got it zoomed in. There it is there, Sister St. John of God Wayland, which is very strange because she's the only one that has a saint in front of her name. Everybody else is sister with their, mother and then their names. And all the other people or the EVPs that we got either on Spirit Box or other are here. And their graves are actually across the street from y'all. Agnes is here. Agnes Kelly. That kind of stuff I thought was very interesting. What do y'all think about that stuff?
That is interesting. I did figure out, I got a clip that I made while doing the review of the DVP. I slowed it down, and I found when I slowed it down, it sounded much different. So I'll play that clip for you. It's just a 2-second clip. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Okay, so I'll just play it first. Play it again. So what I heard is its job, referring to its job.
It could be.
But I'll play it one more time just so you guys can hear. Can you guys hear that all right or no? But that's slowed down to half speed, and I heard its job. So whether it's St. John or its job, it's really tough to say, but that's what I determined it was saying. Did we lose our host?
We might have lost our host.
Seems that way.
Uh-oh, spaghetti-o.
Well, I find whenever you're working with paranormal stuff, things always go wrong. Whether it's your batteries are draining, whether it's, technical problems. So this is par for the course.
Definitely.
For sure.
Well, the day after you folks did the public ghost hunt in the building, in one of the staircases, we lost one of our fire alarm sensors.
Wow.
Oh, really?
It was the servant staircase.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, that servant staircase is pretty active as well. I know that, Noah, you had a school group come by and actually...
Yeah, I probably maybe a week or two before we did the public ghost hunt in the building, we had a field trip at the museum, and we had a group of kindergarten students who were there with us, and we were getting them ready to take them back to school. And I was standing in the center of the first floor foyer, and we were trying to get their jackets on. And two little ones got past me, walking toward the kitchen and the servant staircase. And when I turned my head to like get them to come back to put their jackets on, they were standing, staring at the staircase, waving, and then audibly said hello. And so as they were coming back past me to get their jackets on, I just said to like, who are you talking to? And they just said, we were saying hello to the lady.
I love that story, Noah.
And that was the lady that was the other area that I was doing the investigation on our preliminary one, and had a lot of activity in relation to a Rebecca, was what I was picking up there, who had worked and been up and down those staircases many, many times. Felt very comfortable being on those back staircases. So,
Right, there were a lot of names that showed up, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
And like one of the, like, I guess, historically interesting things about some of this evidence, particularly as it relates to the servant staircase, is that the building is known as the priest's house in Torbay. So its historical association has always been with the parish priests who lived there. But in reality, right from the time it was constructed in 1918, right through to the latter part of the 20th century, there were live-in housekeepers. And they are part of the history of that building. And it's interesting. And in some ways, it's nice for us from an interpretive perspective for the museum that their stories get to be part of the larger story of this place, rather than something that just kind of disappears into those kind of quiet servant areas of the building that don't get a lot of attention because they're not the beautiful formal dining room or the sitting room of the priests. But, through those stories of the housekeepers who lived there, there's a whole other dimension of the history of this building, which itself relates to the social history of the community that gets to be told, which I think is very interesting and very important.
Oh, very important, definitely. It seemed like a lot of people who were there heard or experienced somebody talking or breathing. I know this is Taylor during his solo. He said he heard a breathing. So, Rob, when you were setting up one of the cameras,
we lost her again.
We lost her again. Do you remember setting up one of the cameras and having an experience down there, Rob?
Yep, I do actually. And let me just pull it up.
Rob.
Yep. Oh, you got the thermal? Yeah, okay. So, yeah.
Technical difficulties. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so even, I'm going to pull up a few different things here that people found.
So yeah, while I was setting up the camera, I was moving it around, and you'll hear EVP pretty damn clear say it's here.
Yes, yeah. I will go back to that one. While I'm looking for that one, I do have some other ones that I can share. I can play them in order, so that way we won't have as many technical difficulties. Okay, so that was Taylor's solo. We saw that. We thought maybe it either said St. John's, or Rob thought it said something else. Then there was another solo that said, we're here. He said, I heard breathing. There was another one. We found your Agnes that came through because Dan was outside over in the graveyard and found her. There was another one. There was a cat ball that went off up by the door with an orb, which we thought was interesting. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that. You can see the orbs floating around up here. They were following this water line here a lot. If you look up here, you can see the cat ball flash. And then the orb comes out. And one thing of note, the orbs all come out of the ceiling from upstairs. And when we were there with CBC, when we were talking with them, Taylor, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it, but they didn't like something down in the basement.
Yeah, so they didn't like it in the basement because it was kind of weird feeling down there for them. So, and with me, when I was down there with them, I could feel something weird down there, like a weird energy. And when we went in the back there where they had all the chickens, I seen a black shadow with horns.
Well, this was a shot of when we were in the room near the place where the chicken coop was, next to the door that is nailed shut. This is Jonathan on the left, Abby Cole from CBC there, myself, and the CBC person with the camera, and then there's Taylor here. But you can hear it say, Taylor shouts out what the spirit box says. Do you remember that, Taylor? It says, my blood.
Yeah.
Thought that was strange. And then it also says another strange thing. It says horse, which is strange. But then there's another EVP. We can't make out what it says, but Taylor turns and looks right towards it. If you boost it and wear your headphones, you can definitely hear it, and he can sense it, right? But it's really difficult to hear. So there were a lot of voices caught on the trail cam, which I thought was interesting. We mentioned about Dan's window. If Dan was here, he could mention his necklace. But I have another part here about the crawl space. I think this one here is just a couple different audios, but I can play that if you want. And you can mention some things about this if you'd like.
You're hauling a big camera.
I am hauling a big camera.
I'm wondering if you want to sit on one of those foam things or something. Would that be more comfortable for you?
I'm all good here.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Rob talking to the reporter. That'd be cool.
Like something shot down right here.
It was probably an orb. Probably an orb, yeah.
Oh, an orb.
So you saw an orb.
Basically just like a manifestation of energy. What the hell is that?
Water dropping from the ceiling. Rosemary.
Rosemary. So apparently it was Rosemary.
Is that Rosemary? That sounds like an old name.
I will mention when they said Rosemary, my mic cut in and out for like 3 seconds.
Huh.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just water dropping right here as well.
So what did you guys think about that name Rosemary?
It was very old name.
Does that mean anything to you, Noah? Rosemary?
Not as far as I know.
That's one of the other names that came up. We got a lot of different names that came up there. There
So
was a
in that tunnel, we had something talking about being shot. We had a spirit come through and say it was shot.
Yes, I can keep playing that if you'd like.
I don't know if it was
You're
that clip.
hauling a big camera.
I am.
Say again?
I'm not sure if it's this clip or not, but yeah, we did have that come through.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go through the whole clip or not, just to find that one. But there was another one where they said they needed closure, or they wanted closure. And Jonathan, I think you had said that on the spirit box. You picked that one up.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And you picked up some other things on the spirit box you were carrying around. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I did pick it up.
Yeah, he got a definite hello that came out of it. And there was one that I thought was really interesting about the woods. It said on the back of our shirts, you can see a picture of the logo that you see up here in the top right on the BOG team up here. And there was an orb that shot right into my back and said, "I like the woods." Now, we got a lot of other.
Lost her again.
Yep. So there was a lot of different evidence that came through. So what do you think, Rob and Taylor and Jessica, about what's going on with that?
I think there's definitely activity in the place. I think it warrants more investigation. I'd love to go back. I did a whole solo session in the tunnel, like under the house in the basement. Unfortunately, we had a malfunction with the mic we were using, and we lost all that entire recording. And it was the only recorder we had down there with me at the time. But my personal experience, I was hearing stuff. I was reacting to different things happening in there, and I was the only one in that tunnel by myself in the dark, no light on, no nothing, just asking question after question, waiting for responses. I'd love to go back and just do a small solo session again, and ensure that we have multiple recorders going and stuff, because whether it drained the battery or something happened, I think it got knocked over actually. I think me and Taylor ended up coming in, and me and Taylor were down there, and then the recorder fell. And I think when it fell, it corrupted the file or something. But we weren't able to recover any of that.
There was some interesting things, that happened when we were there. Also, with when CBC was there, we had set up the. It seems to really like playing with the laser grid. Played with the laser grid downstairs also. And when you were off doing your solo, and I was asking about what the house doesn't like, is it a person? No. Excuse me, other way around. Is it a thing? No. Is it a person? Yes. And it kept pointing over to where you were while you were doing your solo. And I asked her, "Are you okay?" And then it kept pointing over to where you were. And it even said, I'm over here. It pointed. It said, "I'm over here," because we had Taylor under Estes, and said, "Taylor, do you remember any of the things when you were under Estes? I remember when you got up and you were scared at one point." Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, when I got up and I was shitbaked because I felt something touch me, and then out of nowhere I heard a scream coming from the spirit box, and it said, "Get out."
Yeah, we started doing some prayers downstairs because I said, do we need to do some more prayers or something? Because, all the orbs were coming from upstairs. I didn't want to really hang out downstairs. But when we started doing that, it said, "The devil is real." And then it said, "Be careful." And then it threw my stick on the floor and broke the top of it off, which was a dragon head, which I thought was really weird. And then while all of the rest of the team were in, I kind of did my own solo out there again, and I heard something growl through the spirit box at me really loud. It was weird. And of course I didn't have the spirit box on record. And like Rob said, don't you love it when things really happen and then you lose evidence and you can't get it. It is hard to, with equipment, unfortunately, to record and capture all this stuff, right? Because you got all these different battery drains that were happening also with different equipment.
And she's gone again.
Yeah, it is true. It's quite common for battery drain and stuff like that to happen while you're investigating a place that actually has, spirits and stuff active. And I think they can drain the batteries to increase their ability to communicate with us.
Because our laser grid went.
It did. It was playing with the laser grid. Okay, you might want to explain a couple, Jessica, things that we did there. It wasn't just one investigation. Do you want to explain like how many different investigations that the BOG team did?
We did one initial investigation. That was probably our longest one. Then we also did a public one where we invited the public to come in and investigate. Then we did one with the CBC. Then there's been some discussions, and of course Noah and volunteers and other members of the community have had other experiences there. So there's been a number of different events that have occurred there. Now, part of the thing is that house is surrounded. There are graveyards on either side. I know that when we did our initial investigation, that we ended up getting some visitors from the graveyard as well, that weren't necessarily attached to the house, but just were free wandering spirits and were drawn in by the light that we were providing. As with dealing with spirit, they are attracted to light. So we did have spirits coming in, kind of investigating us as we were investigating them. So that was pretty interesting having that happen. Then there's always the potential of people taking spirit home with them. Now we did do some protection to the house and to everybody that came forward to make sure that spirit didn't necessarily follow them home, because I do know that one of our team members on the initial one did have that experience. So we just want to make sure that spirit doesn't necessarily follow people home, because that can be also disconcerting and uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, it can be. I know during the first one, we had met a lot of different spirits on that first one for sure. And they were just as curious, like you said, as we were. But they were playing with a lot of our equipment then. Taylor, do you want to talk a little bit about, I had both you and Jessica under SDs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience on the first investigation?
Well, that was like my first time in like, I don't know, so many years doing SDs. But that was the first time I'd done it was that night, and it was crazy.
How about you, Jessica? Your experience with the SDs there? Did you want to say anything about that?
I mean, I rely less on electronics, so I don't necessarily use Spirit Box, and I don't use a lot of the other toys that everybody uses, primarily because batteries die on me very quickly when I do this type of work. So for me, I find it ineffective because I normally don't tend to capture things. So I let you guys capture the stuff, and I just do my thing. But there was a lot of names coming forward. There's still names that we don't necessarily have matched up, but also there were spirits that came forward and just provided descriptions of, so I got a kind of a glimpse of what they looked like without a name attached to it, which came later. I know that there were a lot of different descriptive individuals that I saw from all sorts of different time periods. So it's definitely not an exact science. It would be so much easier if it was.
We did get one other interesting EVP, Jessica, that came through. And Noah, this was during one of the public tours during the Halloween festival that we had, the Paranormal Festival. I think, Taylor, this was group 1. I'll go ahead and play it.
Tell us your name. If there's any spirits here, you come touch this K2 meter. Come touch the ones here on the counter. See it? That wasn't me either. See it light up the green? Can you do that again? See this device that I'm pointing at? Light that up the yellow.
You can hear it say "fuck you."
So there was a lot of activity. We were doing a session on the first floor and second floor, but like, Taylor, do you want to explain again what happened?
So basically, I was telling it to make the K2 meter light up, and when I did, you can hear it, "fuck you."
Yeah, I thought that was strange. But, you know, Noah, back to that, you know, I found that we had to get permission from the house. If we didn't have permission, it said leave. Like, especially during the first investigation, I said, do we have permission to look around? Can we stay until a certain time? And you know, we were holding the rods, right, Jessica? And they opened and said no. But then I said, well, we have permission from Noah to stay until a certain time. And then it was like, yes. But then Taylor and Jessica, especially Taylor, it kept saying, leave, get out. You heard growling. It didn't want us to stay until we said, well, we have permission. And then it wasn't so bad, right? So I think these ghosts don't want to be bothered, right? And they did say that after a certain time, they're not used to having people roaming around and around their place after dark, and that's why they were there. Jessica, you'd mentioned, I think when we were asking it, well, how did you find us? And it's because we had the lights on after a certain time, and they were coming through. And Noah, didn't you have some other people in the community say they had seen people outside who weren't in there after hours?
Yeah, and what's interesting is it's the very room that you were just talking about, where the with the light and and the flippant response. We had a member of the community see a woman standing in that window, which is peculiar because that would have been one of the priest's bedrooms. So like, from my own experience, like the energy that I feel on that side of the house is masculine, which would make sense given that was the priest's area of the house.
Right.
And that is not far in proximity from that landing that we were talking about, where the image of the priest in his robe was seen, and where Jessica and the dowsing rods were moving erratically, right? So I like it's that room for whatever reason is interesting. And like there have certainly been a lot of staff encounters of hearing footsteps upstairs, walking around. And it's interesting too, because like for us at the museum, it's almost always male staff who have experiences. And those of us who've been at the museum for a while, at the very beginning, you have experiences in the house, and then it stops. You don't really, there's no further interaction between us and whatever's with us. And so the feeling that I'm left with is whatever's there is very protective of the house and lives in the house. And, you know, when the lights go out, the house returns back to its other residents. And, we are kind of its daytime custodians. So there's an interesting relationship between those of us who care for the building and those who, beyond life, continue to reside in the building. And unsurprisingly, it's often men who are coming into the building to do alterations or work in the building, whether maintenance, construction, cleaning, who at the beginning of that work will have experiences. And it's sort of like the house making very clear that it's there, that, we reside here and that we care about this place. And we're watching.
And the housekeepers are there too, right?
And the housekeepers are there too. So it seems like there are resident spirits who have an investment in the house. They're attached to the house, not just simply by virtue of being there, but because there's a role that they play or played in the history of the house, and I guess continue to play a role in a different way.
Well, in backing up that, what you just said, I'm going to play another clip. This is a trail cam, and this is from when we had the public, I guess you call it ghost hunt for us, but it was actually a tour of the facility, and this is upstairs on the second floor. I'm not sure if it's group 1 or 2, but a gentleman who works in your house, who I won't say his name, but he's over here in the left towards that door. This is the door that you were talking about, and this is the staircase and the banner. There was an awful lot of orbs. I want you to pay attention to an orb that flies across the room from the right to the left, hovers in front of Mr. D's face, and then goes straight up into the ceiling, but also watch in the background of how many other orbs are flying around.
Oh, I see it.
I can play it back. Pretty cool, hey? Yeah, there wasn't an astronomical amount of orbs.
What's interesting is the direction change, where it's going this way and then it, and it curves.
Yeah, I've got a lot of other different ones that I can show you. Toggling back and forth is interesting doing this with StreamYard, but I've got one that's interesting because it goes around Dan too, because Dan had some episodes that he found kind of scary. But here's Dan over on the banister, and he's got orbs checking him out too. He kind of turns around, and there were some orbs checking him out. But yeah, when we had the group up there were like, here's this one with 10, I swear, 10 plus orbs. I'll open it and just let you look at all of them flying around. Do you see them all? And now I can attest to this place has no dust. There were no windows open. There were no bugs.
Jen, we don't see nothing.
Oh, sorry. I will pull it up. Click present. The joys of the internet. Here we go. Okay, let's play it again. Do you see all them over everybody's head over there?
Yeah.
So there are some spirits, checking out the house, keeping it safe, and it's definitely a great place to go visit, look at the history of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, did you want to say some other things about some of the other exhibits that you have there?
Well, we at History House, our collections include the history of the community going back to the 18th century. So we have some interesting artifacts from the 7 Years' War on display, as well as some pieces related to community history. And there are, of course, some artifacts from the old convent, as well as from the church and from the priest's house itself that are part of the collection as well. So there are some original objects that are tied to the history of the building and the parish that are in the collection, which are kind of some really interesting pieces that are there too.
Yeah, you've got a lot of different relics. You've got mummers, and for the people who are listening all over the world, you may want to explain what mummers are, because we did have a lot of pictures of them in the history house.
Yeah, mummering it's a Christmas tradition in Newfoundland and Labrador, but also in the British Isles and in Nordic countries as well. More or less, people disguise themselves and go visit their neighbors during the 12 days of Christmas. And it's sort of a game. You try to guess the identity of who those people are who have disguised themselves. And then in return for having visited, people are given food and drink. And it's a tradition that really has origins in the medieval period, and in Newfoundland and Labrador has persisted. And there's a really strong tradition of mummering in Torbay, which had both Irish and English origins. In fact, there's some of the very earliest Irish emigration across the ocean happened here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So there was an Irish presence in Torbay as early as the latter part of the 18th century. And in fact, the south part of Torbay, where the priest's house is located, is an area that was settled by Irish settlers. So there's really important historical and cultural connections that are there too. And they're part of the artifact collection really speaks to the material history of some of those traditions and their importance to this community as well as communities all across Newfoundland and Labrador.
And check out their link down on the bottom there, so you can visit them at the History House. It's www.historyhouse.ca. And I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today, Noah, Taylor, Jessica, Rob, and John. And shout out to Dan Earl. He's also part of the team. And I also want to give a shout out again to UPRN. You're listening in on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, USA. Follow UPRN and all their networks. Rob, give a shout out to where people can follow you.
IMDb, easiest way is just Google me. Type in Robert Dumond in Google and it'll pull up all my stuff.
Jessica, you want to give a shout out to you and Larken Point and where people can follow you?
You can follow me on Facebook at Larken Point, or you can, if you're interested in learning more about me, you can email me at larkenpoint@gmail.com.
Noah, do you want to give a shout out again to where people can follow your work and Torbay History House?
Yeah, we're available through our website, www.historyhouse.ca. And we also have a Facebook group as well that's available through the Town of Torbay's main site. You'll find all sorts of information about events we have at the museum as well as our visiting hours. We're a 12-month museum, meaning we're open all year long. And we have visiting hours right through Monday through Saturday. So if you're visiting Newfoundland and Labrador and Torbay, come visit.
Okay. Taylor, do you want to give a shout out with your work and where people can follow you in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook at Taylorhannvlogs or Taylor Hann, and you can follow me on YouTube at Taylorhannvlogs/Ghost Hunter.
Jonathan, do you want to give a shout out to your Canine Dog Daycare and where people can follow you with the BOG team?
Yeah, you can follow the Canine Dog Daycare on Facebook. Canine Dog Daycare, that's it.
And you can also follow the BOG team, and you can find them on the link tree with the ParanormalNL podcast. And you can also follow them on Facebook and a lot of some other socials that you'll find them. Now, Rob, I want to give you the opportunity for a shout out of your merch. You can also find Robert Dumond's Paranormal NL podcast and the BOG team merch also on TeePublic. He created all those and also the music, which I am going to finish off with. Thank you, everybody, for being on. We really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Jen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.